Hey homesteaders, gardeners, and cooks. My name is Jennifer. Welcome to Miles Away Farm, or welcome back. It's been a minute. I am finding with the cancer diagnosis and my husband retiring that some of my priorities have shifted, and I will continue to do YouTube videos, but I'm not going to do them on a regular schedule. I've got some projects that I want to share with you, but to be honest, I've been doing the YouTube for a couple of years, and I've done almost 2 videos a week for a couple of years, and I have about 4,500 subscribers. The number has slowly gone up, but it hasn't turned out to be. Basically, what I'm finding is I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I think in this age of Instagram Reels and TikTok, where people are wanting stuff that's really fast and really slick, I'm just not the right fit. I've got an audience, and I very much appreciate all of you who have subscribed and who have followed me for some time. Thank you so much. But I do recognize that I'm long form. I'm an old school teacher, and I want to explain things, and I want to go into detail. And I also don't have a real slick setup. I don't have multiple cameras. I don't have anybody else shooting for me. I'm a one-person show. And it's been a ton of fun. I've learned so much, and I've had so much fun editing videos. But the reality is I'm not making very much money. I think I earned $1,700 in 2024 from the videos, and my priorities have shifted. And so we are going to spend more time camping and doing fun outdoor things. And I'm also really recommitted to an exercise regime with the cancer diagnosis, because it's been shown that regular exercise cuts your cancer reoccurrence rate in half. And so I'm very dedicated to spending an hour or so at the gym 3 or 4 times a week. And so I just don't have a ton of time to dedicate to YouTube videos. I will keep doing them as I go, as I'm doing interesting projects that are unusual and a little bit different, and garden tours, just because I love green growy things, and I think you guys do too. I did have a surgery on the 22nd. I am almost healed from that. I had an incredible surgeon and a really great surgical team and a very good experience. It was much better than I anticipated in terms of recovery. I am starting to get pathology back on all of the oncotype and radiation outlook and all of that. My prognosis is very good. I will do 5 rounds of radiation just in the spot of the tumor, so what they call the tumor bed, so not the entire breast. And so that will be coming up. I go in for the simulation version of that, where they figure out all the settings and everything next week. And then I'm assuming that 5 rounds is going to be back to back in the following week after that. And then I'm still debating about the hormone blockers. That's a whole different story. And maybe I'll do a piece on that at some point when I make that final decision. But it's complicated, it's nuanced, and I'm looking for a different oncologist, because the one that I met with has been the one kind of dud in the team that I've had dealing with this process. He was not terribly empathetic, and I just didn't vibe with him at all. And so I'm looking for a second opinion on that. Okay, enough cancer update. I apologize for disappearing. I hope you guys haven't been worried about me. I've mostly been very well and feeling very good, and being in the gym has been incredible for me in terms of renewing my strength, not just from the cancer surgery, but a lot of strength that I had lost over the previous couple of years. And so I'm feeling a lot stronger and really dedicated, and it's just been fantastic. So I cannot recommend enough to start a regular exercise routine, because it will definitely improve your life. But let's get back to what else is going on the farm, which is we are in the mid-August abundance of all the produce. We had a nice fruit year. We've had lots and lots of fruit. We still have fruit coming in, but I had a nice peach crop, and I always have some peaches that I sell, and then I have some that are kind of scratch and dents that are really not sellable. And so this is some of those peach seconds that had been in my walk-in cooler and were looking a little bit worse for wear, and I needed to get on it and do something with them. And I saw somebody talking about this recipe in one of the Ball Canning books for a peach Bourbon Ginger Jam. And I loved the idea of peaches and ginger together. That sounded like a fantastic combination. And what I've done is I've taken that recipe and I've converted it to a lower sugar recipe. So the original recipe called for 7 cups of sugar, which is 49 ounces, and I brought it down by about 10 ounces. So it's the one I'm using is 39 ounces of sugar, and I'll walk you through some of those conversions fairly quickly. I actually have a video on how to convert to a low sugar recipe by converting your recipe to weight instead of volume. So I'm not going to go into great detail, but I will tell you how I did that, and it came out beautifully. And so this is going to be Christmas gifts. Very much like most ball recipes, the original recipe said it would make 6 8-ounce jars. I got 10. So I got way more than it said it was going to make. And that is one of the frustrating things about ball, and the fact that they talk in volume rather than in weight. And then jam is dependent on how long it cooks for, because you're evaporating liquid off of that the longer you cook it. And so depending on how fast your stove is and how it comes together, you can evaporate a lot more or a lot less. There is no way that this recipe would have only made 6 jars, even if I had followed it exactly. That was a ludicrous estimation. And so I ended up with 10, but these will be Christmas gifts. So for those of you who are following me, who know me, and are maybe family, you might be getting one of these in the mail for Christmas. But I've got 10 beautiful jars of jam. The ginger in this is crystallized ginger that's been chopped fine, and it has a very nice effect. It's definitely noticeable, and it's delicious. And so, yeah, really looking forward to having some of this on our own shelves for various things, not just toast, but things like baked oatmeal. And also it'd be a very nice glaze on some things. So looking forward to having this on our shelves and for having this for Christmas gifts this year. So peach bourbon ginger jam. Let's get started. So pretty much any recipe that you will find for doing canned peaches is going to require you to take the skins off. And you can peel these by hand, but that's maddening. And so I dip them in hot boiling water for a minute or two, and then the skins should just peel off. If you've ever done that and the skins don't easily come off, it's an indication that your peaches are not fully ripe. So they need to be ripe enough that those skins are going to release pretty quickly. So I didn't know that when I first started canning, and it was maddening when I would have skins that just would not release. Usually they need to sit a little longer at room temperature if you're having a hard time getting them to peel. But you can see there's a little scratch and dent here on these peaches from insect damage or just bruising. Normally they tell you to put this in a ice water bath. I don't keep enough ice on hand to do that, and I think cold water from the sink is fine. Peaches come in 2 general categories, which is cling and freestone. Cling peaches tend to be the ones that you get early in the summertime. Cling peaches are usually an earlier variety. Freestone means you can easily pull the flesh off of the pit without a lot of fighting. I do not can cling peaches because they are very difficult to get the flesh off of the pit. And then I'm cutting off any insect damage or bruising that I see. My rule of thumb is if I would eat it out of hand, then it is good enough to put into a canning jar. Your mileage may vary in terms of where you draw the line, but that's where I draw mine. In terms of the conversion, here's the original recipe, and then converting that recipe to weight, and then what I did to turn this into a lower sugar pectin recipe. So original recipe, 4.5 cups. A cup is 8 ounces, and 8 ounces is typically about the weight. Rough rule of thumb is 8 ounces equals a cup, so 4.5 cups is going to be 36 ounces. So the original recipe is about 39% fruit. I am converting that to 55% fruit by using a low sugar pectin, while keeping all of the other measurements pretty much the same. So using my new measurements, I need 50.5 ounces of peaches. The scale is a little bit tricky because I'm having to convert from pounds because it doesn't measure in just ounces. And then there's a lot of juice in there, so I'm trying to make sure I get some juice, but not all the juice, so that I've got a good mix. So there you go, 50.5 ounces of peaches. And then it calls for a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. All of the official canning advice will tell you that you must use bottled lemon juice. I have seen some really good studies that show that a typical lemon from the grocery store, not a Meyer lemon, but just a regular old lemon, is actually going to be more acidic than the stuff that's in the bottles because they standardize it to 5%, which means they add water. And so I just go ahead and use fresh lemon juice because I really don't love the taste of the preservatives that are in bottled lemon juice. You do you, draw that line where you feel comfortable. I am filtering out, making sure I don't have any seeds or pulp. And I'm adding this immediately to my peaches just because they're sitting around in the air and they're going to start browning, and that lemon juice is going to help them from discoloring. Not a big deal in terms of safety at all, but I want them visually to look good. This was a little bit later in the day, so I did this first part earlier in the day. I'm going to throw those peaches into my food processor along with that lemon juice and just give them a coarse chop. I want there to be some chunks of fruit in my jam, and you can see I've put the juice in the pot before I put this in the food processor, so that's lemon juice and peach juice. Here's my ginger, my crystallized ginger, which I happen to keep on hand anyway, chopped fine, couple tablespoons of that. Everything's going in the pot early. And then I ended up using rye instead of bourbon just because we happen to have it on hand, and I like rye better than bourbon. And it's a total of a 1/4 cup, so this is 1/8 of a cup filled twice. I'm adding that at the beginning because I want some of that alcohol to cook off while it's warming up. And then here's my pectin measured out. This is the equivalent of a box of regular low sugar Sure-Jell Pectin. I just happen to have it in bulk because I did a lot of commercial jam making for a long time, and so I measured out 1 3/4 ounces of that low sugar pectin. This is the pectin that's in the pink box. And then giving that a good stir. My heat is not on yet, so I stirred all of that together before I turned my heat on. If the fruit is hot when you put your pectin in, it will clump, so you want to make sure everything's still cool before you add your pectin. And then I'm letting that come to a full rolling boil where it boils when I'm stirring, so it doesn't stop boiling as soon as I stir it. You want a full rolling boil, then you add in your measured sugar. And again, I'm cutting this sugar by about 10 ounces. This is an organic sugar from Costco, and so it's a little bit clumpy and it's a little bit brown because it's still got a tiny bit of the molasses in there, which is actually going to lend additional flavor to this peach jam, so no big deal. But stirring that in, I like to stir it in, not just a big dump, but kind of stirring as I go so that you don't get big clumps of sugar that haven't yet dissolved. And then we're going to bring this back to a full rolling boil for about a minute. Depending on the type of pectin you're using, this process can vary. And so be sure to read the instructions for your specific pectin. If you're using a liquid pectin, if you're using the Pomona's pectin, the process may differ. And so this is how it works with this specific variety of low sugar pectin. Everything's come to a full rolling boil. I have boiled it for a minute. We are ready to go into the jars. I like to reach down and do from the bottom straight up because there's usually fruit floating on the top and liquid towards the bottom, and I want a good mix of both. And so I try to dip all the way down to the bottom of the pot and then come straight up so that I'm getting a nice mix and I'm not ending up with a few jars that are mostly liquid without a lot of fruit chunks in them. I put out 8 jars. And then it turned out I needed at least 1 extra because, again, ball recipes, for whatever reason, they always make more than they say they're going to make. And as I said, there's no way this would have been 6 jars. I just can't imagine a world where that would have been the case. And then I'm topping everything off to 1/4 of an inch of headspace, which is typical of jams and definitely typical of this specific recipe. You don't need a lot of headspace with the jam because it's just doesn't, for whatever reason, it's going to seal pretty easily without it. 10 minutes of processing time on this. I'm going to wipe the rims. You'll see that. If you happen to be using an old jam recipe from an old cookbook and it says 5 minutes of processing time, just increase it to 10. It's not going to hurt anything, and 10 minutes will just naturally kill any mold spores that happen to be on the inside of those clean jars, on the inside of your new lids. And so 10 minutes is a good general rule of thumb in terms of jams. Sometimes it's longer, so if it's longer, go for longer. Don't do 10 minutes, do whatever it says, but minimum 10 minutes. And then new lids, I use 4 jars lids. There's been a lot of talk of recent ball lids failing, so I definitely am happy to have these 4 jars lids. And then I went to an estate sale and ended up buying a bunch of 8-ounce jars, which was a thrill for me. I got them for 50 cents a piece, but I got a lot of colored white rings, and so the ones that were the quilted crystal looking jars, which are definitely going to be the ones that I will gift, got the white rings, so it's like canning math. You're always mixing and matching things. So there's all of our jars in the pot. You need 1 inch of water over it, 10 minutes of processing time after it comes back to a full rolling boil, and then out it comes. I usually let it sit for 5 minutes or so after it's done timing with the lid off to let it cool off a little bit, but then everything comes out of the jar, and a lot of times the lid will pull down as you're pulling them out. It doesn't take very long. But there you go, guys. Bourbon ginger peach jam, great Christmas gift, very easy recipe, and lower sugar by a good percentage from where we started, but still plenty sweet. Give this recipe a try, tribe. Thanks for watching, tribe. If you like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave me a comment or share. I have new content coming out whenever I have time.